Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside Student Affairs. I'm your host, Zach Hawkins, Director of Development for UNC Student Affairs. As you know, we talk about the issues that are facing the division of UNC Student Affairs, how the division works to hold the university up, especially during this pandemic, and give you an opportunity to meet the leaders who are making this work. And today I have a very special guest, Jonathan Sauls. He's the Associate Vice Chancellor and Interim Dean of Students. Jonathan, how are you?
Doing very well, Zach. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you, Jonathan. You are an integral, you're a veteran of UNC Student Affairs. I guess I can call you.
That's right. Yeah, I've been here. I'm in my 16th year in student affairs.
16 years. And so, in that time, you have, seen quite a bit happen in our area. You've had a child come through the ranks of
That's
UNC.
right.
You're a double Tar Heel yourself. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Back in the 90s, met my wife here. She also works in Carolina Student Affairs. And then, as you just alluded, my oldest daughter graduated here in 2020.
Okay, good. Well, Jonathan, the purpose of this, as I've shared with you, is to make sure that people understand they can look under the hood, actually dig a little deeper into the work that we do and see how we've done a really good job of holding the university up and providing those basic services for our students. And today, I want to focus on your portfolio. And that's, and a large part of that is the Dean of Students Office,
Right.
of which that's a post that you used to hold. So could you just in broad strokes tell people what the Dean of Students Office does and how it supports the university's campus?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk about it and share it with our friends out there. The Dean of Students Office is really a comprehensive source for student support and advocacy. And so while a lot of our different departments that people have heard about perform certain very specific functions, our Dean of Students Office is often there when students don't know where to turn to, when they have maybe a non-academic challenge that comes up in life. Maybe they become ill, there's a family crisis, they have a financial issue that might beset them a little bit. And so they're looking for some of that connectedness of how can they access resources. And one of the great things about our Dean of Students Office is we solve a lot of problems, we engage with a lot of things, but we're also really good and connected with a lot of our partners across campus, including beyond student affairs. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is this really team-oriented approach, so that if a student comes and they have a challenge, we don't say, sorry, we don't do that here. We really connect with them, try and peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and then as necessary, involve our different partners to help solve what might be a fairly comprehensive problem. So everything from attendance, as I mentioned, to financial issues, to just the kinds of things that could potentially get in the way or disrupt somebody's academic experience. Life happens, certainly for our
Sure.
college students over 4 years, and we want them to know that we have a lot of caring people who are here to support them in all aspects of that. So health and academic success and personal life, all of those things intersect, and a well and healthy student is obviously somebody who can achieve their full academic potential. So that's a lot of what we're connected with in different ways.
No, that's fantastic. And fostering student success is what we do. And no other department defines that more than us, the Dean of Students Office. One of the things that we know is that students have had, not every student that comes to Carolina is rich. We have students who are low income as well as those who are middle income. And a lot of those students have faced hard times before, but especially during the pandemic. Can you talk about some of the emergency needs that the Dean of Students Office has had to deal with over the last year?
Yeah, thanks, because that's one of those things that we have a lot of experience with, even in non-COVID times. But there's no question that this global pandemic has exacerbated some of the challenges that our students and their families have faced. And as you mentioned, we're good fortune of being able to serve the entire population of this state. And so folks come from all kinds of different backgrounds, and even students who may come with an initial sort of security. They may not have a lot of resources, but they have sort of what they need, can be one event away from having something that really jeopardizes the ability to stay in school. And we have a significant number of students who may face either housing or food insecurities at some point during their 4 years. Living in Chapel Hill is not an inexpensive proposition. And so, a lot of times that's the first time a student has perhaps embarked on their own and incurred expenses outside the kinds of costs that might have been associated with living at home. We have certainly the potential for medical expenses, and sometimes those aren't always planned, of course, right? So even with our students having insurance and access to really great healthcare here in the Chapel Hill community, both on and off campus, even a transport by ambulance can be an expensive thing, as many of our listeners will know. And so some of those things can suddenly disrupt a budget that's very, very tightly put together. And so now they have to make some really fundamental choices. Do I pay off this bill that I just incurred, or do I buy the groceries that I need for this week? Maybe there's a car, trouble. We've all been there, had car trouble, and we know when we take it in for the mechanic, it's not always a simple, inexpensive fix. And so, I think it's really, helpful for us to be reminded that our students, who are everything from 17, 18-year-old first-year students, all the way up to 25, 26, 27-year-old graduate and professional students, and we serve all of that population. They will experience, just as we all do, some of those challenges. And so one of the great things that both the university and the Dean of Students Office has been able to do is to put together resources, often with the generosity of a lot of folks who may be watching this video, to provide some one-time infusion for folks, not as financial aid, not as a replacement for sort of the long-term planning that we do just about the basic costs of education, but some of those emergency or unexpected costs that may come in, because we know that getting that 4-year degree or finishing up that degree, graduate degree program, is fundamental and transformative for somebody to get out there, be able to pursue that job or career, and often become somebody who's able to contribute back for the benefit of all of us through, paying taxes and doing all those things that are really helpful to us. And so we really view it as part of our critical mission, a foundational piece of what we do in student affairs, but also the Dean of Students Office, is to really make sure that we don't lose a student because they simply experience some relatively minor, in the grand scheme of things, financial cost. Oftentimes it's just a few $100s.
That's right.
But that little bit of money to some of us is very significant in the life of that student. And we have testimony after testimonial from students who, even more, I think, sometimes than the financial impact of it, which is huge. As we all know, that stress that comes with having an outstanding bill or having something that you need that you simply can't afford, that can be really vital. And this year we've seen that more than ever, because we know a lot of families have been impacted by disruptions in employment, by their own health consequences. So even if the student isn't directly impacted, sometimes the impact on a family that's providing that support can trickle down and have an impact on that student. So we really want to try and provide as best we can that safety net, because we really want to make sure we're thinking about the 4-year or 2 or 3 year, whatever it might be for their program, that trajectory, versus just thinking, oh, this will be fine, they'll weather that. We have incredible good fortune. We recruit great students. We have very, very high retention rates. We're envy of many of our peers. We don't lose students because they can't hack it. We bring in the best and the brightest. The students sometimes who need to take time away or aren't able to finish, it's often because of these, what I call life issues, that have nothing to do with their capability, but really centered on some of the challenges that any of us could experience. And so when any of us are able to contribute and sort of pay it forward in that way, when we benefited from this education, it's a great opportunity to support this generation who will be out there doing great things in the years to come.
No. Thank you for that amazing response. And it's really important. You said a few things that I want to make sure that we highlight. Most are only a few $100s.
Absolutely.
That small amount can stop the matriculation of a bright and deserving student from finishing Carolina. And one of the stats from our current Dean of Students, she talks about the national average of the students that have food insecure. It's almost 20% of the campus, including graduate students, are food insecure. And so I really thank you and the work that you all do, because this is the important stuff. And these are the things that sometimes get overlooked. We've seen a lot of generosity, but as we get to the other side of the pandemic, which leads to my next question, we have to stay vigilant. We have to make sure that we're continuously filling those needs. But as we get into the remainder of this semester, I know you are Mr. COVID, or have been for the last year. What do you see with Carolina and reopening, and how we'll make sure that students get back, and then also ensuring that students get back and can financially stay as well?
Yeah. Thanks for that. And I definitely want to highlight, I appreciate you doing that with, our Dean of Students, Desiree Rickenberg, and her entire team do a fantastic job. I'm pinch hitting just for a little bit while she's on some leave, but she and her team are absolutely wonderful and have done an awful lot. One of the ways we actually don't hear a lot about this is not because it's not there, because
Right.
they just tend to the needs of those students and really envelop them with the care and compassion that you would expect of a place like
Yeah.
Carolina. Yeah, I'm optimistic, Zach. I think we're at a good point. It's been a long year for all of us. As you said, I'm sort of Mr. COVID. I feel like I work on COVID all the time. It's been an honor to do that on behalf of the university and student affairs. But yeah, I mean, there were some dark days in there, which just we didn't know how long this was going to persist. We know this isn't how any of us want to be sort of operating in either our personal lives, certainly our campus life. But the advent of the vaccines, the care that our students are taking and making sure that they're upholding our community standards, it hasn't been an easy ask. I mean, we're
Yeah.
asking folks to do things that are sort of contrary to basic human nature, to not interact, to not engage, to not be social creatures. We know that's tough, and it's particularly tough for folks at this stage in life when they're college students. Thinking about our folks who are transitioning in, who already had some of their high school year disrupted, if they're first year students, or certainly even some of our upperclassmen. It's a very different kind of experience. But I think we are talking about the prospect of something that is far more near normal. I don't want to say that's going to be gone overnight, but I think we are absolutely anticipating, if things continue, and of course we have to be responsive to the science and what the actual virus, it dictates more to us than we do to it. But there's a lot of steps that we can take, and because people are doing those things, I'm really optimistic that we're going to see, largely in-person classes as opposed to our predominantly remote instruction. Campus activities will resume. Some of the things that make the campus culture in terms of sporting events and arts events and concerts at different venues. We may still be wearing masks. We may still do some modest social distancing, but I think some of the really draconian things we've had to do to just really limit the spread have proven successful this
Mhm.
semester. We've had a really positive semester under the circumstances, and I think if we can carry those lessons learned into the fall, we can relax things without ever failing to be vigilant. I mean, that'll be the key. But I think our students in particular have learned a lot. They know what they want, and so they're good partners in making sure that they can do the things required to get what they are after, which is that in-person experience. So we'll see some vestiges of it. I don't want to pretend
Mhm.
like we're just going to all be done with this come August, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of good reason to be positive and optimistic that part of all the traditions and experiences that define Carolina, we're going to see in much greater degree come August.
Yeah, no, and that's again what you said was important. Staying vigilant, but knowing that we can get back to near normal. Because like you, like I, we hear from a lot of friends and parents who are ready for that Carolina experience. It's nothing like a Saturday during a football game or
Sure.
organization being able to get together and do the work to help move the Carolina community forward. But we just have to do it, follow the signs. And so I'm thankful for that answer, but most importantly, thankful for the grace that you and others have given the students as they have learned those lessons, and so we'll be all the better for it. One of the other pieces of your portfolio under the dean of students is our veterans, and
Mhm.
so we are one of the schools that lead in this particular area, and are so excited that we 2 3 years ago we were lucky enough to get money from the state to support a standalone space for the Veterans Center. How are veterans engaging with the university during the pandemic, and then talk about the overall office and what Veteran Services does and how they do their work.
Yeah, we're very fortunate and proud, frankly, to be a leader in this space. We know that our veteran and military affiliated students are a critical part of the state. They contribute a great deal. We are really thankful for our colleagues in Raleigh who've been supportive of these efforts to really identifying and helping to support this population. No question, the pandemic has had a little bit of impact on some of the services and the programming that we can provide directly in our Carolina Veterans Resource Center. But we still provide a good deal of programmatic support and direct one-on-one support in a virtual format. Medea Bivens, who is our director down there, is doing a really great job. She's an Air Force veteran, has a lot of abilities to make connections. And, there's a lot of experiences that many of our veteran students, because they may be defined in our broad strokes as non-traditional, meaning they may have started their undergraduate career a little later than some of our first years. Where there are folks who are coming back and after a first career in the military or have served elsewhere are now coming back to complete a degree program and a certificate program or graduate or professional program. And so there's a lot of diversity within that population of experiences. And some of them have families, some of them have partners or spouses. And so it's really important that we are cognizant of the broad array of needs that those students have and serve them in a unique way in which, frankly, they've earned. They have provided tremendous service to all of us through the volunteer service that they have rendered on behalf of our nation. And so it's a great honor for us, frankly, to be able to turn around and serve them in a special way in terms of their connectedness to Carolina. We also find that, there's a lot of community within the student veteran and military affiliated community. They share a lot of kindred spirit. And even some of the playfulness among branches of the service, et cetera, little rivalry maybe between the Army and the Navy or whatnot, but they're all bound by a common sense of selflessness and service. And so it's really great to be able to provide. That's one of the great things I enjoy every year is our red, white, and Carolina blue graduation ceremony, where we recognize our graduating veterans and military affiliated students. I make a point of making sure I'm at that ceremony each and every year. We have a lot of folks who are going to be commissioned to our ROTC program and are going to go into service. But that's been a really great program. And one of the things I am looking forward to, and I think, it's emblematic of so many things on campus, as we are able to get past the immediacy of this pandemic. The great thing about having that center and the support that we receive from the state and from a lot of generous donors is there's a dedicated space for folks to come to commune. Sometimes it's just for study groups. Sometimes it's for an informal social. It's to come and access services about how you obtain some of your benefits. We certainly want them to have all the educational benefits they've worked hard to earn. And so it's just a great clearinghouse for a lot of those services that are needed uniquely by that population. So I'm eager for us to be able to come back and supplement. Again, very good work being done in the virtual space. We've learned a lot. We'll keep a lot of that to make it accessible to as broad a range of folks as possible, including our distance learners. We have a lot of folks, as you know, who engage with Carolina already from afar. They do it over the computer. But we also want to make sure that for those who are here in Chapel Hill who would benefit from those in-person activities, that we can resume that at a greater cadence and really take advantage of the great center that we have.
No. Thank you for that. And I know you have an amazing onboarding program with Blueprint to Healprint. And it's just so intentional, and it's worth making sure that people always hear about that, because I know some of the efforts that are underway is we want to make sure that we can keep that staffed and that we can keep those programs moving, and that takes resources. And so making sure that we tell our friends the amazing things we're doing helps them want to learn more and hopefully want them to give a little bit more. And so this has been great. And as I said, we try to make sure we keep it within a time frame so others will continue to watch.
Sure.
And we are on all social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course we share it to our newsletter. And so Jonathan, you've been amazing. I really appreciate everything you've done to keep student affairs moving as an interim, as Mr. COVID, and then pitch hitting for Desiree during her leave. You are a stalwart, and so we thank you, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and thanks, Zach. It's always fun to talk about all the good work that's happening in student affairs. Most of that credit, of course, needs to go to colleagues, but appreciate the chance to share it with you.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another great episode of Inside Student Affairs with Jonathan Sauls, our Interim Dean of Students and Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, talking about the ways that we support our veterans, our students who need us during emergency times, and then the work that we're doing to move the campus through COVID. Thank you.
Thanks.